One common question I get at my law firm is when should I form my corporation or my LLC? And there's a reason why people are asking this. Obviously, they want to avoid some costs unnecessarily, but they also want to make sure they get their documentation in the right order. So today, we're going to take a few minutes, and this should be a brief video. We're just going to talk about what are some considerations that go into when you form your LLC. For those of us that haven't had a chance to meet yet, I'm Shawn McBride. I am a corporate business lawyer licensed in multiple states. I focus on business law and business law issues. And today we're going to be talking about that earliest stage of getting into business and business law, which is when should you set up that corporation or LLC? And we have other topics like this here on the channel. So do feel free to go check out our other videos. So when do you start? Well, here's the thing. A LLC or a corporation, if done properly, is generally going to be treated as a separate legal entity from the owner or owners. And so this is a real advantage. And this is one of the reasons people like to form business entities is you get a layer of liability protection. No longer are you on the front lines if the business gets sued, but the business is the one that gets sued. And that means that your personal assets are protected. So that really gives us a key indication of when it's a good time to form a business. Definitely you want to get that business formed before you start operating. That's the general rule, almost all cases. Now, in some cases where you have a single owner and the owner is doing all of the work, there may not be a lot of liability protection. In some very unique circumstances, you might meet with your lawyer and they might say, hey, let's not form this thing right away because you're not going to get that much additional liability protection. Just because you have an entity does not necessarily mean you're going to get that liability protection. There's a lot of steps that need to be gone through, and that whole overall structure needs to be looked at. Another time you want to form that business sooner than later is if you're developing assets. Let's say you are developing some type of patent, some type of intellectual property. Let's say you're developing a film, or let's say you're developing something where you're going to be building assets over time. You're doing research and development. Well, who owns that asset? If you don't have a separate legal entity, you're going to have to figure out who the owner is. Is it a partnership? Is it an amalgamation of people? Do people each own a little portional interest for their work? That's why you want to get that entity formed so that you have somewhere to house all of your assets. The stuff you're creating can be owned by the entity. And then separately, you can deal with the ownership of that entity. So there's a case where if you're building significant assets, if you're developing and researching and creating or patenting and doing projects in advance, you probably want to form the entity even before you have revenue coming in, before you're operating. So you really want to think about this stuff. Also, great practice to get in early, document who the owners are, who's doing what, and make sure you really understand how everything's divided. That can become a real problem down the road with businesses. Let's say you're going to open a cafe or a restaurant with a friend and you say, okay, we're going to jump into this together. And you go out and negotiate the business and you get ready to buy the franchise or to jump into operating the business or buy the equipment. And then you figure out that you don't agree on how profits are going to be divided or how major decisions are going to be made. The time to have found that out was sooner than later. Again, another indication to form that entity sooner. Simple entities aren't that expensive to form, especially when you look at all the other costs around your business. When you start getting into the licensing, the training, the stuff you're going to buy from third parties, the computers, the equipment, all these things that go into your business, why not do a little bit of work up front? Now, too early, on the other hand, would be before you even know what business you're going to go into or what you're going to be doing. If you're just out scouting ideas, that in most cases would be maybe too early to form an entity. Once you lock in on what you're going to do and you start developing an operational plan, you start either building those assets or having those initial customers, that's a great time to start forming that entity. If you have general questions, topics, ideas for future videos, we see those in the comments sometime. Would love to see that. Would love to interact with you. So do drop some comments, but don't put anything confidential there. Other people may see those comments. So keep it very general. We can't do legal advice over YouTube, obviously, or whatever social media you're seeing this on. But if you have questions or ideas for future videos, general topics, would love to see if we can possibly address them here. All right, thanks for tuning in today, folks. I'll see you for another video soon. Feel free to share with your friends and subscribe to the channel if you're getting value. I'll catch you later.